What you know, alibis. Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. It's Friday, February 14th, Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day to all y'all. Hope you guys have had a great day so far. We're going to jump in and recap today's testimony. It was a short day. We were there until lunch, broke for lunch for an hour and a half, and came back very briefly after lunch. We'll get to that at the end of the episode. On the stand was investigator Jared Sparkman. He was on cross-exam. He was the last witness yesterday. The defense asks about Bradley Post. Did you speak with him the day of the murder? The witness said no, and he had never met Bradley Post before Christina was killed. Bradley Post was interviewed on the 13th. He talked with the coroner and also an investigator. And the witness said the coroner was the one who did the most asking of the questions. So the defense asks, is the coroner employed with the Greenville County Sheriff's Office? No. Coroners are not tasked with investigating? No. He's asked if Bradley Post was a suspect that day. The witness said they definitely wanted to talk to him, but he wasn't interviewed by anyone in the homicide unit. The buccal swab was taken from him the day of the murder. They asked the witness if Christina's sister Tina's phone was taken that day. No, and it was never taken. She did give a buccal swab on October 15th for comparison and exclusions since she lived there with Christina and her DNA would have been everywhere in that house. Bradley Post had his phone until October 19th, and the defense points out he had plenty of time to delete things. And the witness confirms they did get his phone on the 19th. On October 21st, you spoke to Bradley Post and Tina at the residence. Was that conversation recorded? The witness doesn't think so. The defense asked if Bradley Post asked if Christina was wearing her engagement ring when she was killed, and the answer was yes. Did he ask for it back? The witness doesn't know if he asked for it back. He just asked if she was wearing it. The defense says he told you about the clone of her phone that he had. The witness said he did that at that interview on the 19th. Still on the 19th, with that interview with Bradley Post, another investigator was in there while he was being interviewed, and they saw his phone in the interview room. They took his phone at the end of that interview and got the clone phone that mirrored Christina's phone that day as well. The witness got search warrants for Bradley Post's phone, the clone phone, and a laptop. He gave those to Charlie Cunningham. Post left while they were extracting the phones to go get his laptop. His attorney was with him when he left. October 19th, Christina's daughter was taken into emergency custody, but the witness did not participate in that. On October 23rd, there is another interview with Christina's sister, Tina, and says, you asked where everyone stayed in the house. Tina said the child's room was turned into a playroom and the child slept with her mother, and the witness said yes. Back to the day of the murder. They spent a lot of time canvassing the area for video or seeing if neighbors saw anything suspicious. He said it was mostly other officers doing that canvassing. The defense asks if someone said they recognized the suspect, you would show them a lineup. The witness said no. You never went with a lineup showing Zach? No. Did anyone say they saw the suspect's face? No. Why did you go to Donna Gorman's house? Again, that's the woman that testified a few days ago, saying that she saw Zach in front of her house, putting on gloves and things like that. The witness said they found out nobody had shown her a photo of the bike, so they wanted to show her that. But they did talk to her on the 13th. The defense says between October 2021 and October of 2024, Zach's photo has been shown on social media, the newspaper, local news, national news many times. And the photo that they seem to show most often is what he looks like now with a full head of hair and a beard. The witness says yes. Moving on to October 28th of 2024. That's when Miss Gorman said she saw the face of the person on the bike and said she believed she would know the person if she saw him. The witness says yes. The defense says, you didn't put that in your report? No. You agree that the identification of a person is very significant, and the witness says yes. So he's asked, did you show her a lineup that included Zach's photo? And the witness said no. The defense says, your theory is Zach drove from the mountain home to Canebrake and turned his phone off at 7:45. If he cuts his phone off, there's no way he could be seen at 8:15. The witness said, I didn't say he turned his phone off. Talking about their surveillance, they had 3 different videos from homes in the area of the suspect, and one of the houses gave law enforcement multiple videos. He's asked if the bike was picked up on camera before the murder, and the witness says no. How close is Miss Gorman's home from the crime scene? The witness said across the street and a couple of houses over. You met with Tina on the 21st to collect things found in the residence, and one was a blue USB thumb drive, which was found in Christina's room. Yes. Did you examine it? Yes. One document in the mailings was an ad for an escort service, and you're aware that she had, and then there's an objection that's sustained. The jury was sent out. The defense says someone testified in family court that Christina solicited him for prostitution and drugs. It was a man named Alex. The defense says that the officer said it was a prostitution website, and there's evidence she was a prostitute. They say the state opened the door to bring it up. The state says the man that testified in family court is deceased and cannot testify. The witness says he's not aware that Christina was involved in that activity. They have one more question for their proffer for this witness. You're aware how Alex Fields got involved? That's the man that testified in family court. The witness said he's aware. He responded to an advertisement that Mr. Mello posted. The witness says that he was under the impression Mr. Mello posted something on Craigslist, and that's what this Alex person responded to. The ad had a photo of Christina and said, have you seen this woman? And it had upstate South Carolina. Her name is Christina Parcell, aka Caroline Warren. Please respond if you know her, need information for a family court case. They point out this was years before the murder, and the alias was Caroline Warren, and the witness says yes. But the judge sustained that objection. They talk about the WhatsApp messages. You collected and put all the messages in a binder between Zach and John, and it was a large binder full of texts. Yes. Isn't it true the majority came in the middle of April when their child is sent back to the States with her mother? The witness doesn't know if that's when the bulk of the texts were sent. On redirect, Christina's phone, the clone was in Brad's possession. He signed into her Apple ID with her password, and they point out not everything is cloned, just what would have been inside her Apple activity with that Apple ID. Did you see any conversations related to Zachary Hughes? The witness says no. On the day of the murder, did you have a photo of a suspect leaving on a bike? The witness said they got that the next day. 3 years later, are you working with the solicitor's office preparing the case and then decide to talk to Donna Gorman and show her a copy of the person on the bike? The witness says yes. Did you show her a photo of Zach? The witness says no. On Zach's phone between 7:42 and 11:34 a.m., there's no activity on the phone. At 7:42, he unlocks and plugs in his phone. Can he do that in his car? And the witness says yes. On a recross, they ask, what is Life 360? I use that all the time. It's an app where you share locations with the people you invite into your circle. The defense asks if you can share files or text there. The witness doesn't think so. The defense asks if the clone was just sharing the Apple ID information and what would be under that account. Yes. He's asked if Bradley Post declined to give that Apple ID, and he said he did not give it initially. Another investigator spoke to Donna Gorman, and the witness says within a week of the incident. The defense points out that Ms. Gorman said she could identify the face and nobody went to show her a lineup which included Zach's photo, and the witness said no. The next witness, Dr. Claire Rose, she is the medical examiner with the South Carolina Medical Examiner's Office. She did Christina's autopsy. There was also a forensic tech assisting her. She points out there are two parts of the exam, the external and the internal. The external is looking at the body as it is received. She takes notes and photos, documents what clothing and personal items are on the victim's person. Are there any signs of medical intervention on the body? They also look for signs of disease or injury. After the external exam, she removes clothing and then cleans the body. For the internal, they take out all of the organs and look at each one individually to see if there is any evidence of disease or injury. The witness was made aware of the circumstances of her death. The external exam, she was received in a sealed body bag. She had handbags on her hands to preserve any evidence that may be present, and the body is just brought to her as it is taken from the scene. What jumped out to her was the 35 sharp force injuries. They show a diagram of the sharp force injuries, which are caused by anything with a sharp edge. It could be a knife, could be scissors, a screwdriver. And she explains that a stab wound is deeper than it is long, and an incised wound, the length is longer than it is deep. Let's go through the sharp force injuries that were found on Christina. As far as stab wounds, there was one on the top of the shoulder, one on the left side of the upper chest. It looked to be just below the collarbone. Those went through the skin and soft tissue. There was a stab wound to the left breast that went through skin, soft tissue. It penetrated the chest cavity and superficially penetrated the left lung. There was a stab wound to the left side of the mid-back that went through skin, soft tissue, and penetrated the chest cavity, but it did not injure her left lung. For incised wounds, there were two to the right upper arm, to the back of the right forearm, the left upper arm, and the back of the left pinky. For head and neck, there were 7 stab wounds and 19 incised wounds. For incised, those were found on the scalp, the right ear, on the front and back of the ear, both cheeks, and on the front of the neck on the right side. There were 7 stab wounds to the neck. One was on the back of the neck that went through skin and soft tissue. There were 7 stab wounds total to the neck. There was one on the back of the neck that penetrated the skin and soft tissue. There were 6 on the right side of the neck, which penetrated skin, soft tissue, muscles, and hit 2 major blood vessels, the right internal carotid artery and the right internal jugular vein. Those 2 wounds would have been fatal. She also had more wounds on the right side of her head and her neck. The witness said the majority of the wounds were concentrated to the right side of her body. As far as blunt force trauma, that's caused from an impact. She had contusions to the left side of her face, her anterior neck, and her left knee, tiny scrapes on the right cheek, the neck, and the left upper extremity. There were 2 skin tears on the right side of her forehead and her left eyebrow. She had hemorrhage in the scalp and in the temporalis muscle. Her opinion was the type of object used, the appearance was consistent with a knife. She really couldn't conclude more than that. Toxicology was negative, and her determination, cause of death, multiple sharp force injuries, and the manner of death was homicide. She did not find any sharp objects inside Christina's body, meaning the knife did not break off. On cross, the autopsy was on October 14th, the day after she was killed. As far as toxicology, Is it true the toxicology showed she had amphetamine in her system? And isn't that a controlled substance? The witness says yes. As far as sharp force injuries, in your report, you used the word superficial when you talked about the incised wounds and they were longer than deeper. Yes. The majority of the sharp force wounds were incised and superficial. Yes. Christina weighed 163 pounds and wore red acrylic fingernails. Yes. On a redirect, the state talks about the amphetamines and asks if the findings were consistent with a prescribed amount, such as Adderall, and the witness says yes. On a recross, is it possible to get illicit drugs in the same quantity as the ones you would get that are prescribed? Yes. So the last couple of witnesses go through the DNA. I'm not going to go word for word. They talk about how they swab for it, how it's sent to the forensic DNA lab. The first DNA witness processed over 60 pieces of evidence with samples. What were the results of the DNA? On the right handle brake of the bike, there was a mix of a major male profile and one trace contributor. The major, obviously, was Zach. There was no determination made as far as whether or not the other was Christina's DNA. They did find Zach's DNA on a clipping of a fingernail from Christina's right hand, and that was it. That was it for the testimony. There were some motions by the defense, motion for mistrial, saying that the chain of custody of the DNA was flawed and that other people handled it where it wasn't documented. That was denied. They wanted a directed verdict on the harassment and say that the harassment causes the person and would cause a reasonable person in that position emotional distress. The person listed in the indictment for harassment is Christina. There's no evidence she suffered mental or emotional distress. There's testimony she met with the Greenville County Sheriff's Office to give them the envelopes, but there was no testimony that she was crying or upset. The photos were of her. She was nude. There were no statements she made or no eyewitness accounts that she suffered mental or emotional distress. The state says she's dead. She can't testify about her emotional suffering. She did go to law enforcement to file a complaint. So that motion for a directive verdict on the harassment charge was denied. They also said that the evidence is insufficient to prove the elements of the indictment against Zachary Hughes. They asked for a directed verdict. That was denied. After lunch, we came back very briefly. Zach had changed out of his suit and was in his red jail outfit. He stands, and the judge advises him about his right to testify in his own defense now that we will start the defense case on Tuesday. The judge told Zach to think about it over the weekend, speak with his attorneys, family, and friends. And so we do not know at this point whether he will testify, but we will find out at some point next week. We may wrap up by the end of the week. However, there's no court on Monday. We're back Tuesday. There's a possibility we are going to have winter weather here Wednesday and Thursday. It's the South. We ain't prepared for that stuff. And it looks like if anything happens, it could be icy. So there is a chance that this trial could be delayed next week if that weather comes through. I will keep you posted as we get closer in. That was it for today. I will be doing an update episode at some point this weekend, catching up on some of the other cases that we're following that have had some developments this week. But in the meantime, hope you guys have a good rest of your evening, and we will see you soon.